The Lubber, written by Bill Adams. Mr. Pollock did not want to work on a ship. He was a farmer and loved the land, but his father's farm was not big enough to support him and all his brothers, and so Pollock had to go to the sea. On his first day at sea, the wind was strong and the sea was rough, and Pollock became seasick. The man who worked with him on ship laughed. Seaman Hallam asked Pollock, "Why did a man like you ever go to sea?" Pollock quietly answered, "A man must do something to live." The sailors did not like the way Pollock said, "A man must do something." They thought highly of their job, and felt sorry for a man who did not work on a ship. Pollock made a mistake calling sailors' job something. The sailors did not forget it and made crude jokes about Pollock whenever they had a chance to do so. Pollock did not seem to hear them laugh. He was a proud farmer, and he wanted everybody to know it. The sailors began to call him Lubber, a man who is tied to the land. They could not think of a worse name to call him. After months at sea, Pollock's ship returned home, and Pollock said goodbye to Hallam and the other seamen. Hallam did not meet Pollock again for more than 3 years. Then, while walking in port one day, Hallam saw Pollock standing on a ship that smelled of cows. Pollock was in the clothes of a captain. Hallam thought he was mistaken. It could not be Pollock, the farmer, a landlubber like Pollock, captain of a ship. Impossible. But there he was, Pollock himself, the same short, broad-shouldered man he once worked with on ship. Hallam looked straight ahead and walked on. He was angry. How could a man like Pollock become a captain of a ship? He was not even a good seaman. Then Hallam started to look for work. He looked for some days, but could find no work. Time were hard. Everything was against him. He needs money. Something had to be done soon. So, at last, he thought of Pollock. He hated to do this, but he decided to ask Pollock for help. He went to Captain Pollock's room. The door was open, and Pollock jumped up and put out his hand. "Hello, Hallam," he said. "Where is your ship?" Hallam's face got a little red. He said he did not have a ship. "Good," said Pollock. "I need a sailor like you on my ship." When they arrived in port, the animals on the ship are fat and healthy. Then the animals were gone, and Pollock felt lonely. He was not happy waiting for the ship to move off to sea again. But in a few days, the ship was ready to go to sea. Suddenly, Pollock came up to Hallam and said with excitement, "Good news, Hallam. We are going to have a beautiful horse on ship. He's a king among horses. Wait until you see him." The horse was bigger than any Hallam had ever seen. He was a great black animal with 4 white feet and a white star in the middle of his forehead. Pollock could not keep his eyes off the horse. He watched him all the time and would let nobody touch him. He fed the horse and cleaned his hair and body. And overnight, before going to sleep, Pollock would make one more visit to the horse. It was a most happy time for farmer Pollock. Now turn to sea captain, and his days and nights went by quickly. A week later, they sailed into a storm. The ship began to shake and roll in the rough sea. Pollock tied the horse to the floor and talked softly to him so that he would not be afraid on the rolling ship. And he ordered Hallam to act as ship captain, while he closed the door and stayed inside the room with his horse. The next morning, Hallam looked for Captain Pollock. He found Pollock in the horse room, asleep beside the animal. An hour later, Pollock came out with grass on his coat and hair. The seaman laughed behind his back and made jokes about Farmer Pollock and his horse. The storm got worse, and that night the ship suddenly crashed into a rock. There was a large hole in the side of the ship. Water came in fast. Pollock ordered the seaman to climb into the small life-saving boats and get away from the ship. Then he rushed to his horse. Hallam followed him. Hallam knew the horse could not be saved. The sea was too wild and rough. The poor animal would have to swim and swim in the dark until it died. He saw Pollock put an arm around the horse's neck and softly said, "Steady, boy, steady." When the lifeboats were full, Pollock looked at Hallam and said, "All right, Hallam, leave the ship." "I'm waiting for you, sir," Hallam said. "Do not wait for me," Pollock said roughly. "Go away." Hallam's face was white and worried. "We cannot leave you here," he protested. "I told you to go," Pollock shouted. "That's an order." Pollock led the horse from his room. He had no gun. Hallam knew then that Pollock would let the horse swim. He would give it a small chance to live. The ship was sinking. Pollock talked to the horse in a low, warm voice. He did not want to leave the animal. Hallam took Pollock's arm and said, "Save yourself, Captain. You cannot help the horse." "Obey orders, Hallam. Leave the ship." Hallam jumped into the lifeboat. He looked back. Pollock was still standing beside the horse. He moved his arm to tell Hallam to sail away from the sinking ship. The storm ended and the moon shone on the rough water. Hallam and the others could clearly see Pollock and the horse. They could see the white star on his face and the shine of his coat. The water had almost covered the ship. They saw Pollock take off his clothes. He was going to swim with the horse. A cloud moved across the moon and completely covered it. The wind blew salt water into their faces. They could no longer see Pollock and the horse. When the moon came out of the cloud again, the ship was gone. Hallam and his men tried to sail the lifeboat to where they had seen the ship. Soon they saw a large black head and a man swimming close beside it. Once again, Hallam heard Pollock talk to the horse. "Steady, boy, steady." Hallam shouted, but Pollock did not answer. The sea grew darker. Hallam shouted until his voice became weak. Only the wind and waves answered. They searched for Pollock until morning. Hours later, a ship came and saved the man. All of them looked back across the rough sea, looking for their strange captain and his horse. They saw nothing, just a few seabirds flying high above the white top of the waves.